Lagos, Nigeria, a city that never sleeps, a sprawling megacity where over 20 million souls hustle every single day to survive. It is a place of bright lights, soaring dreams, and unimaginable energy. But beneath the concrete flyovers, where the shadows stretch long and the city's noise becomes a distant hum, secrets lie buried. Secrets that most people are too busy to notice. In the late 1990s, if you drove past the Toyin Flyover along the bustling Ikeja highway, you would have passed a familiar sight. A man, seemingly lost to the world, living in the dirt beneath the bridge. To the thousands of commuters rushing to work every morning, he was just another tragic statistic. A homeless man. A madman clad in rags, surrounded by a mountain of rotting garbage, old tires, and plastic waste. His name was Clifford Orji. For years, people watched him from a distance. They watched him talking to himself, pacing frantically, and yelling at the sky. Drivers threw small coins at him out of pity, others simply rolled up their windows and looked away, eager to escape the sight of absolute poverty. The city had collectively decided who Clifford Orji was, a harmless, unhinged beggar drifting through a broken life. They were dead wrong. On February 3, 1999, the illusion shattered. A faint, desperate cry for help echoed from beneath that very bridge, a cry that caught the attention of a few brave passersby. When the local community finally invaded his makeshift enclave, expecting to find a helpless man in need, they didn't find a sanctuary of poverty. They walked directly into a living house of horrors. Surrounded by the stench of decay, they uncovered a sophisticated, terrifying operation. There were no signs of a man who had lost his mind. Instead, there were targeted tools of a predator. And sitting right there in the dirt, next to a pristine, high-end cellular phone, a massive luxury item reserved only for billionaires and elite politicians in 1999, Nigeria, was a meticulously kept ledger. A book filled with the names, numbers, and addresses of some of the most influential high society figures in the country. The crowd stood frozen. The realization hit them like a physical blow. The man they thought was a ragged beggar was operating a dark, highly organized network right under the nose of the state capital. Who was Clifford Orji truly? Was he a lone, deranged actor operating in a vacuum of madness? Or was he something far more sinister, contracted asset, a terminal point for a wealthy, untouchable elite who traded in human lives? Welcome to Dark Echoes by Jay. Today, we open the case file on one of the most chilling, unresolved chapters in Nigerian history, the mystery of Clifford Orji and the razor's edge of Lagos. To understand how deep this mystery goes, we have to look closely at the environment Clifford created. The Toyin Flyover in Ikeja wasn't a hidden alleyway in a remote village. It was a central artery of Lagos. Thousands of vehicles drove over it every hour. Police checkpoints routinely operated nearby. Yet, beneath the bridge, Clifford built an empire of isolation. He had lived there for roughly 4 to 5 years. Over that time, he aggressively defended his territory. If anyone got too close to his compound of garbage, he would throw rocks, scream violently, and brandish a razor-sharp machete. The community assumed it was the defensive behavior of a mentally ill person protecting his only home. In reality, it was a highly effective security strategy designed to keep people from looking at what was hidden behind the walls of junk. On that fateful February morning, a woman's screams changed everything. A vendor trading nearby heard a muffled, exhausted voice crying out for water from beneath the bridge. She alerted local youths and a nearby search party. United by curiosity and growing suspicion, they decided to ignore Clifford's violent posturing and stormed the enclosure. What they found inside defied description. The air was thick with the overwhelming stench of decomposing flesh. In one corner of the dark enclosure, huddled in terror, was a heavily malnourished, semi-conscious woman named Awa Wu. She had been bound, stripped, and kept alive in absolute darkness. But as the crowd rushed to untie her, their eyes drifted to the center of the clearing. There was a makeshift kitchen setup, a fire pit with a large iron pot resting over the ash. When they looked inside the pot, they found freshly cooked meat. Scattered across the ground around the pot were human bones, skulls, and severed limbs, cleanly dissected with surgical precision. This wasn't the chaotic mess of a madman. It was an organized assembly line. Clifford Orji was immediately seized by the angry mob, but as they dragged him out into the blinding Lagos sun, the discovery took an even darker turn. When the police arrived to rescue Clifford from public lynching, they began a thorough search of the dirt floor beneath the flyover. And this is the exact moment where the story shifts from a horrific case of a lone cannibal to a massive, terrifying conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of society. Deep inside the trash pile, officers uncovered a working, premium mobile phone. To put this in perspective, in February of 1999, Nigeria had not yet rolled out its widespread GSM network. Owning a mobile phone was an extraordinary status symbol. It cost hundreds of thousands of naira just to acquire a line. Average citizens, let alone a homeless beggar under a bridge, could not dream of touching one. It was a tool exclusive to top-tier military generals, wealthy businessmen, and high-ranking politicians. How did a man who wore rags and ate from a dirt pot possess a functional mobile phone? Who bought it for him? Who was paying the bills? The answer, or at least the clue to the answer, lay in the second object pulled from the mud, a well-preserved ledger. When investigators flipped through the pages of Clifford's notebook, they didn't find the random scribblings of a fragmented mind. They found a neat, orderly directory, page after page of names of prominent individuals, numbers belonging to high society elites across Lagos and Nigeria. The immediate theory exploded across the Lagos press. Clifford Orji was not a madman acting alone. He was an agent, a supplier. He was using his status as a harmless madman as the perfect camouflage to kidnap vulnerable citizens, butcher them, and sell human body parts to wealthy patrons who used them for money rituals and dark spiritual practices. Under the bridge, he was untouchable because society chose to blind itself to his presence. He was the perfect invisible middleman. Following his arrest, Clifford was taken to the police command. Initially, when microphones were pushed into his face by frantic journalists, he spoke. He admitted to the acts, casually stating on camera that he and his accomplice had been targeting people for years. He spoke openly of selling body parts. But the moment the investigation began targeting the names in that ledger, a heavy iron curtain of silence fell over the entire case. The ledger vanished from public view. The names on those pages were never officially published or investigated by the authorities. The mobile phone's call logs were never read out in a court of law. It was as if a collective hand had reached down from the top of Nigerian society to suppress the echoes coming from beneath the Toyin Flyover. Clifford Orji was charged with murder and remanded at the Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison. But a strange legal limbo followed. For over 13 years, Clifford sat in a prison cell without ever facing a full definitive trial. Every time his case was called, it was delayed. The system seemed content to let him rot in a dark corner, ensuring he would never stand on a witness stand and speak the names written in his book out loud. Medical reports were continuously brought forward stating he was mentally unfit to stand trial. The very defense he used to hide under the bridge became the legal shield used to keep him from talking. The public demanded answers, the media shouted for justice, but the wheels of bureaucratic silence kept turning. On August 17, 2012, after spending more than a decade in administrative custody, Clifford Orji died quietly inside the Kirikiri prison walls. The official cause of death was reported as a brief illness, though prison officials noted his mental health had severely deteriorated to the very end. With his death, the case file was effectively closed by the state. Clifford Orji took his secrets to a lonely grave, but the questions still echo loudly through the streets of Lagos. How could a man operate a house of horrors in the dead center of Ikeja for years without protection? Who provided the high-end communication equipment found in his possession? And most importantly, who were the elites paying the bills to keep that operation running? Clifford Orji was a monster, without question. But the most terrifying realization of this case file is that he may have only been the knife, the hand that held the blade. The people who truly funded the horrors beneath the Toyin Flyover are still out there, walking the clean, air-conditioned halls of high society, completely untouched by the law. Every city has its shadows, and every shadow keeps a record. Thank you for stepping into the archive with me today on Dark Echoes by Jay. If you want to ensure these stories are never forgotten, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment below.